Hello everybody, this is Catholic Dad, episode number 459, Hyperemotionalism versus Abstraction. So, it's my firm belief, and I think the firm belief of anybody who wants goodness in this world, that men and women are actually complementary of one another. And then we actually are supposed to come together and do good things together, and that's pretty much form families and think of the common good. That's what family life is, that's what the religious life of the church is. And men and women, we have certain inclinations that complement one another, but these can go too far. And so I wanted to talk about like what drives women and the problems with women, and what drives men and the problem with men. And if we start realizing these things in ourselves, we can actually look at our spouse or our future spouse or our brothers and sisters and our family members and actually figure out how we can actually solve a problem that tends to pop up between men and women. And so I've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it again. So men's psychology is tied up in his own brain and the idolization of woman. Women's psychology is tied up in the idolization of self and also the survival of infants. And this is how family life occurs. But these things actually create bigger problems if we don't temper ourselves and what our desires and wants are, okay? So the woman's psychology is tied up in the survival of infants. Infants are very weak and vulnerable. Very weak and vulnerable infants need every little detail addressed in the moment and in the immediate. So women give something called immediate empathy towards people. Like the here and now. Oh, you're hungry, I'll give you food. Oh, you're cold, I'll give you warmth. Oh, you know, and they solve the immediate problems, and this is essential to the survival of the species, and essential to the survival of infants. Okay, it's not necessarily to the survival, necessarily the survival of adults or family members, bigger family members. Now, men, so women are constantly on the child, trying to take care of all their needs. Now the dad, his job is to actually fortify the child against the world. Like if you constantly give the child needs met, constant feeding of the needs of the child, that child will not be able to go into this world and actually forge a future, because the world's a hard and nasty place. So the dad's job is actually to fortify the child against the world. So the mom, like the baby falls down, or the child falls down, and the mommy goes, "Oh, baby, let me kiss the boo-boo," blah, 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 so on and so forth. And then the father's job is to say, "Get up, you're not that hurt, move forward," okay? And so you need both, right? You need one for the survival of the infant, and number two, you need the second for the capacity for the child to go into this world and be fortified against the evils of the world so they can actually become a good Christian. And so, and if you have too much mommying, like the child thinks they're the most important thing in the world, that's creates a narcissistic personality disorder. If you have not enough mommying and too much daddying, you create somebody like a psychopath, that the world doesn't give a damn about me, so why should I give a damn about the world? And so, so you need both of these. Well, anyway, so the problem with, let's go into the woman first. When you're constantly harping on the needs, harping is probably the wrong word, but when you're constantly attentive to the needs of everybody in the immediate, when you go too far with that, you become emotional or hyper-emotional, right? Like everything is super important, and if it doesn't get met, I'm going to throw a fit, right? And you become angry about things, or nobody's listening to me, or why am I not getting my way? Why is everybody against me? Why is mommy like constantly, nobody's helping me in the moment, right? And the daddy's job is, or like, and the dad has another problem, and that's hyper-emotionalism, right? And so, so the warning to woman is this, is that you and your desires to solve every problem in the now is a problem, because you can't solve every problem. It's impossible. And so therefore you need to temper your capacity to solve every problem and pick out the only very important ones, and allow through prudential judgment of the world around you to solve all the other ones, or allow them to push out, so you don't become overwhelmed in your own emotional state. And another warning for the woman is that your emotions are for your children only, and only for the good of the children. They're not for your husband, they're not for your sisters and brothers or family members or anybody else in society or your coworkers, because if you use your emotions towards them, you will drive them batshit crazy, and don't do that, okay? So your hyperemotionalism, well, hyperemotionalism is bad. Emotionalism is good as long as it's for the common good and survival of infants, but you got to temper it, because sometimes, you know, a 6-year-old falling off a bicycle is not a freak out moment, okay? So don't freak out. And if people aren't being attentive, don't yell at everybody so they're attentive. Now, the man, right, he has potential empathy. So he's looking at the child, trying to figure out what kind of child this child is going to become. And so delaying the immediate empathy, unless it's like super serious, like leg falling off and beating blood, you know, active extravasation of blood, the dad pretty much is like, we'll figure it out, no big deal. And this kind of annoys the mommy, because she wants the problem solved in the now, and he's like, nah, it's not a big deal. We're just going to minimize this, and we're going to push it off to the future. And the problem with the male is, A, the mommy could be right, but number two, he gets lost in his thoughts of the future, and he can get lost in abstract thoughts or abstraction. And so the mommy brain gets hyperemotionalism in the now, and the daddy brain can actually become hyper abstract, or get lost in abstraction towards the future. And you know, if you think about who these people are, it's the essentially the intelligentsia of men. And these are like the Karl Marxes of the world, or the Adolf Hitlers in the world, or the you know, the Joseph Stalins, the Lenins, the Trotskys. I might even put Joe Biden in this camp, but I could be wrong. That you believe that the problems of the world need to be solved in the future with this great overwhelming thought of your mind, okay? And the problem is, no man's mind is that great, right? And nobody's mind, and that's God, right? So you need to submit yourself to God and accept reality as it is, instead of trying to forge reality the way you want it to be. That's actually not reality. That's called idealism, and it's very harmful toward the world. And so now, let's bring this back to the man and the woman, is he sometimes disregards her as being hyper emotional and too caught in the now, okay? And she sometimes views him as being uncaring and not concerned with the thoughts of the now. And this is the man-woman dynamic. This is why Seinfeld was funny and Everybody Loves Raymond was funny. This is why sitcoms work. It's because everybody has similar inclinations with regards to their nature, right? And so the goal for the mother is, or the mommy, is to realize that he's not wired the same way as you. He doesn't parent the same way as you, and he's thinking about the future and the common good of the family. The thing for the daddy is to realize is that if she's kind of really intense in the moment and hyper emotional, this thing is really bugging her, and you need to honestly realize that and sympathize with her in the now, and hopefully come to a conclusion that kind of relaxes everybody. And this is why, right? So the Bible says, women, you need to submit to your husbands, right? You know, to his rightful authority. But men, you got to love your wives like he loved his church. You could see the future through reason a little better than she can, and she could see the immediate problem a little better than you can in terms of hyperemotionalism. And you need to quell each other and temporize each other, and you got to do it for the good of each other, right? And so if he says, if the woman's like getting really upset about something, the man needs to not say, listen, woman, just calm down, I got this thing. It like really take some patience and time, and try to speak to her temperament about what's bugging her. And then the other thing she has to do is realize, my husband loves me, and he loves the common good of me, and therefore maybe I'm going to try to temper my emotions in the moment. And well, anyway, this is something to think about for everybody, because we all have these problems. And I'll tell you something, I don't even know what an emotion is. I don't really have them, but I can tell you what, and they annoy me for the most part, like a wailing baby or a wailing woman or a wailing anything. And just make it stop. I need to make it stop. That's my problem too. You know, I should probably actually be a little more empathetic toward them in the now, because God made them good, right? God made women good, and their emotions are for the good. And so I have to see that and not just try to stop all emotions. That doesn't make any sense. And then they need to realize that men actually has their best interests at heart. And if you do that and you actually submit to that job as man and woman, life becomes a hell of a lot easier. And so this is just something to think about. If it makes you mad, sorry. No, I'm not. Well, anyway, please like or subscribe, get the Mass, and pray the Daily Rosary. Thank you, and God bless you all.